The first bell had barely stopped ringing when the noise in Ridgewood High faded into uneasy silence. Every head in the hallway turned toward one voice, loud, cruel, and too familiar. "I don't care if your dad's some fancy lawyer from New York," sneered Ryan Cole, the star quarterback and self-proclaimed king of Ridgewood High. His voice carried the smug confidence of someone used to being feared. "We keep this school clean, and we don't need your kind dragging down our standards." The laughter of his teammates echoed through the long corridor, bouncing off the lockers like cruel applause. For a heartbeat, the whole hallway froze. Footsteps stilled. Conversations died, and the metallic clanging of locker doors faded into silence. All eyes fixed on the girl standing across from him, Leah Carter. The new transfer. The one who had arrived that very morning. Leah didn't move. Her brown eyes locked onto Ryan's with an unreadable calm. Her braided hair, decorated with tiny silver beads, shimmered under the fluorescent lights as she adjusted her backpack. She was smaller than him by at least a foot, but there was something in her stillness, something that didn't fit the role of a frightened new student. It wasn't fear that kept her still. It was restraint. Ryan took a step forward, sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. The air in the hallway thickened, heavy with the scent of his cologne and arrogance. Leah's hands clenched slowly at her sides, knuckles whitening just slightly. A silent warning no one noticed except the few standing closest. His gold ring flashed as he lifted his hand in a dismissive gesture. "You're in my school now," he said, his grin stretching wider. "And people here learn their place." The tension was unbearable. Everyone could sense something about to break. But this confrontation hadn't started here. That morning, when Leah first walked through Ridgewood High's glass doors, she had already sensed what kind of place it was. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and teenage nerves. Trophy cases lined the front hallway. Golden athletes frozen mid-victory, their smiles caught in eternal triumph. Banners hung from the ceiling declaring state championships, record-breaking teams, and names that all seemed to belong to the same few families. Privilege had a scent here, and it was thick enough to choke on. "Welcome to Ridgewood, Miss Carter," said Principal Owens, his tone polite but distracted. He shook her hand like it was part of a routine he'd repeated too many times. "Your academic record is impressive. Straight A's, excellent scores. But I noticed you're not in any clubs or teams." Leah offered a polite smile. "Not yet, sir." He nodded absently. "Well, I'm sure you'll find your place." He gestured toward a blonde student waiting by the office door. "This is Brooke. She'll take you to your first class." Brooke flashed a smile that never reached her eyes. "Sure thing," she said brightly. But as soon as they turned the corner, Brooke's pace quickened. "Sorry, I just remembered I have to drop something off at my locker," she said, already backing away. Room 208's down that hall somewhere, and just like that, Leah was alone. She sighed softly, looking around the maze of hallways. New school. Same story. Her phone buzzed, a text from Mom. "Stay strong. Remember what Coach said. Calm outside, fire inside." Leah smiled faintly, tucking the phone away. The words were more than advice. They were a promise to herself. Her backpack felt heavier than it should have as she started walking, her braids clicking gently like a rhythm only she could hear, a rhythm of focus, of control. No one here knew about her years of martial arts training, the medals she'd earned in tournaments, or the discipline it had carved into her character. And that's how she wanted it. No attention, no trouble. Just a quiet new beginning. She whispered to herself, "Stay invisible." But fate had other plans. Ryan Cole didn't believe in invisibility. He believed in attention. His attention, everyone's attention. When he walked down the hallway, the crowd parted like he was royalty. His Letterman jacket gleamed, a symbol of 3 consecutive championship wins. His walk carried a swagger honed by years of admiration and immunity. "Friday, we're destroying Westbrook High," he bragged to his teammates. "They can't handle our defense." Students laughed, eager to echo his confidence. Even teachers nodded politely when he passed. After all, Ryan's father was Ridgewood's biggest donor, and his mother sat on the school board. Power ran in the family. A freshman hurried by, clutching his books too tightly. Ryan stuck out his foot without looking, sending the boy sprawling. The sound of paper scattering filled the hall. "Watch it, loser," Ryan said, not even turning around. His friends laughed, tossing the boy's notes further down the hallway. No one helped. No one dared. That was Ridgewood's rule. Stay quiet, stay safe. Then Ryan's gaze landed on someone new. Leah Carter. She was at her locker, arranging books with quiet precision. Something about her composure unsettled him. She didn't look nervous or lost like most new students. She looked centered, like she belonged anywhere she chose to stand. Ryan smirked. "Fresh meat, boys," he muttered, his tone dripping with arrogance. "Let's give her the Ridgewood welcome." He approached while Leah was pinning her schedule inside her locker. The photograph she kept there, one of her standing in a white martial arts uniform with medals around her neck, caught the light for a moment before she closed the door. Then came the shadow. Then the voice, "Hey, new girl, you lost?" Ryan's tone was mock-sweet, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Community colleges across town. Leah didn't look up immediately. She kept organizing her notebooks with deliberate calm. When she finally turned, her eyes met his without flinching. "Excuse me," she said, steady and polite. "I need to get to class." Her calmness annoyed him more than any insult could have. He stepped in her way. "Class can wait. I'm just being friendly," his friend snickered. "Chicago, right?" he asked, his grin turning sharper. "West Side, I bet." "North Side," she corrected softly. "And really, I have to go." Ryan's expression darkened. "We have rules here," he said, lowering his voice. "Certain people just don't fit in." The tension rippled through the onlookers. No one said a word. Then, with a sudden motion, Ryan knocked her books from her hands. They scattered across the floor with a loud slap. The crowd gasped. Leah froze for a single second, her fingers twitching slightly, the first reflex of years of training rising to the surface. Then she knelt down, calm as ever, gathering her books one by one. Ryan waited for tears or anger. He got neither. When she stood, she simply looked at him once, expression unreadable, and walked around him. "Hey," he shouted after her. "This isn't over." But Leah was already gone, her silver beads clicking softly with every step down the empty hallway. The cafeteria smelled like overcooked fries and cheap cleaning spray. The noise of 100 conversations filled the air, but Leah sat at the far end of a table alone, focused on her lunch and her notebook. Every so often her pencil stopped moving, when she caught fragments of whispered gossip drifting from nearby tables. "Did you see what happened this morning?" A voice hissed behind her. Ryan totally humiliated the new girl. "I heard she's here on some kind of diversity scholarship," another voice replied. "My mom says that's how some kids get in now." Leah didn't turn around. She kept her eyes on the page, but her grip on the pencil tightened until the wood creaked faintly. For a few seconds her mind drifted away from Ridgewood. She could almost smell the clean mats of her old dojo, hear the shuffle of bare feet, and feel the pulse of calm that came before every match. Her coach's voice echoed in her head, steady and sure. "Real strength isn't about hitting first. It's about choosing when not to." The clatter of a lunch tray pulled her back. A girl with red curls and glasses had slid into the seat across from her, smiling nervously. "This spot taken?" she asked. Leah shook her head. "I'm Emma," the girl said. "You're Leah, right? You're in my literature class." Leah nodded. "That's right." Emma leaned in a little. "I heard what happened. You didn't yell back at Ryan, didn't run off. That was kind of legendary." Leah gave a small laugh, her first real one that day. "I didn't stand up to him. I just walked away." Emma shook her head. "At Ridgewood, that counts as standing up. Nobody walks away from Ryan Cole." Leah glanced toward the center of the cafeteria. Ryan sat surrounded by his teammates and a group of cheerleaders, his arm draped casually over his chair. His laugh rose above the crowd. He looked relaxed, but when Leah's gaze met his for the briefest moment, his smirk faltered. Then he whispered something to his friends, and they all turned to look at her. Emma sighed. "He's been worse since the university scouts passed him over last month." His dad blamed the coach. Ryan blamed everyone else. "So this is what he does now?" Leah asked quietly. "Pretty much. He needs people to fear him. Makes him feel important." Leah picked up her tray and stood. Fear only lasts until someone stops being afraid. Emma blinked, unsure how to respond, but Leah had already turned away. The next few hours passed in slow motion. Every hallway seemed to hum with whispers about the morning's confrontation. By the time Leah reached her literature class, she could feel eyes on her before she even sat down. She forced herself to focus on the lesson, writing notes mechanically while her mind replayed the same thought. the way Ryan's eyes had looked just before she walked away. Shocked, confused, angry. That anger hadn't burned out yet. It was waiting for her. When the final bell of the day rang, Leah walked to her locker hoping to leave before Ryan's crew could appear. But fate caught her again in the narrow space near the water fountain. The hallway was almost empty, sunlight spilling through the high windows. She leaned over the fountain, took a sip, and exhaled slowly. The water was cold and crisp, washing away the dry taste of nerves. Then came the voice she already knew too well. "Enjoying our facilities?" Leah straightened. Ryan stood just a few feet away, his teammates behind him. Their shadows fell across the floor like a wall. The late afternoon sun caught the gold chain around Ryan's neck, flashing like a challenge. Leah adjusted her backpack strap. "I don't want trouble." Ryan smiled in that slow, dangerous way that never reached his eyes. "Trouble? You're the one who embarrassed me in front of everyone this morning." "I didn't embarrass you," Leah said calmly. "You did that yourself." A ripple of laughter passed through the small crowd of students gathering nearby, drawn by the tension. Ryan's face darkened. "Watch your tone," he snapped. "I'm being nice right now. You could show a little gratitude." Leah's voice stayed steady. "You call this nice?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "You think you're better than me because you came from some big city? You think that means something here?" "I think kindness means something anywhere," Leah replied. The crowd fell silent. The words landed like a strike, not loud, but sharp enough to cut through the noise. Ryan took a step forward, close enough that Leah could smell his cologne again. "Here's how it works. I run this school. By Friday, you'll either be at my party or packing to leave. Your choice." Leah's heart pounded, but her eyes didn't waver. "Neither," she said simply. "Now move." He didn't. His friends shifted behind him, waiting for a signal. His right hand curled into a fist, then released. For a moment, she thought he might actually hit her. Instead, he stepped aside with exaggerated politeness, sweeping his arm as though granting her permission. "As Her Highness commands." The mockery in his tone stung more than a shove. Leah walked past him, refusing to let him see even a flicker of anger. Behind her, laughter followed like smoke. When she reached the corner, she finally let out a slow breath. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. Her coach's breathing method always brought the calm back. "You okay?" Emma's voice came from behind her. She must have been watching from a distance. Leah nodded. "I'm fine." Emma looked worried. "He won't stop, you know. Ryan never lets things go. Maybe he should learn how." The next day in gym, the air inside the gymnasium was thick with the smell of sweat, pine cleaner, and competition. The teacher barked instructions as the students lined up for dodgeball. Leah ended up on Team 2. Ryan, of course, was Team 1's captain. From the first whistle, Ryan's voice carried across the court. "Come on, new girl. Show us what you've got. I thought you city kids were athletic." Leah dodged easily, her movements controlled, her timing precise. But she held back. Years of tournament discipline had taught her that sometimes showing less was smarter. She caught one ball, threw it softly back, and stepped aside from another without effort. Ryan noticed her restraint. His grin sharpened. "You can't hide forever," he shouted. Emma on the sidelines whispered to another girl. "She moves like she's trained or something. Did you see that reflex?" Leah stayed quiet, heart steady, face unreadable. Her body remembered every lesson she had ever learned: balance, patience, restraint. When the final whistle blew, Coach Simmons dismissed them for water. Emma jogged over, flushed from running. "You're incredible. Where'd you learn to move like that?" Leah smiled faintly. "Just luck, I guess, but luck had nothing to do with it." She had trained for years. Early mornings, cold gyms, and endless repetition. She had earned her calm the hard way. As she took a drink, she heard Ryan's voice again from across the room. "After school, courtyard. Let's settle this once and for all." His words weren't shouted, but they carried. Every conversation around them stopped for a heartbeat. Then whispers spread like wildfire. Emma turned pale. "He can't be serious." "Oh, he's serious," Leah said softly. "People like him always are." By lunch, the entire school knew. Phones buzzed with messages. Ryan versus the new girl. "It's happening after school." Some students were excited, others nervous, but no one planned to stop it. Leah sat at her usual table, pushing food around her tray. The noise around her felt distant, like waves crashing behind glass. Her phone buzzed again. Mom. She hesitated before answering. Hey, Mom. Leah? You never call during school. Is something wrong? Leah leaned her elbow on the table, lowering her voice. It's happening again. The bullying? Yeah, his name's Ryan. He's been pushing since day one. Now it's supposed to be after school. A long pause. Then her mother's quiet sigh came through the line. Same type as before, huh? Worse, Leah admitted. No one stops him. The teachers look the other way. Her mother's voice was calm, steady. You remember what your coach taught you? You never start it. But if it comes to you, I finish it, Leah said softly. The bell rang, echoing through the halls. I've got to go, Mom. Leah? Yeah? Whatever happens, don't forget who you are. I won't. She hung up and stood, her shoulders squared. The day wasn't over yet. She could already feel it. Something was shifting beneath the surface. Ridgewood High was about to change, and not in the way Ryan Cole expected. The hours that followed felt stretched thin, like time itself was hesitating to reach the moment everyone was waiting for. Every hallway Leah walked through seemed quieter than usual, the usual chatter replaced by glances and whispers that followed her like shadows. She could hear her name murmured behind her in fragments. She's actually going? Someone should tell the principal. No one's going to stop Ryan, not even teachers. Leah kept her expression calm, but her stomach churned with restless energy. Every instinct she'd trained for told her to avoid unnecessary confrontation. But there were some moments you couldn't step around. Some moments you had to step into. In her final class, algebra, the teacher's voice faded into background noise. Her mind replayed every possible scenario. How he might approach, how the crowd might react, how far she might have to go to defend herself. Her fingers tapped softly on the desk, keeping rhythm with her breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Stay centered. When the dismissal bell rang, she didn't rush. She moved with deliberate calm, slipping her notebook into her bag, making sure every paper was perfectly aligned. Students hurried past her, chattering excitedly about the fight. The word made her jaw tighten. This wasn't supposed to be a fight. Emma appeared in the doorway out of breath, her hands gripping the strap of her backpack. Leah, please, she said. You don't have to go out there. There are other exits. My mom can pick us up right now. Leah zipped her bag closed and stood. Running won't solve it, Emma. It'll just teach him that fear works. Emma shook her head. This isn't about fear. He's got his whole team out there. They'll back him no matter what. Leah's eyes softened. I know, but they need to see something different. Just once. They walked together through the halls that were now nearly empty. The closer they got to the courtyard, the louder the buzz of voices became. It wasn't just a few students anymore. It was nearly the entire school. Phones were out, recording before anything had even begun. Leah stopped at the door. Through the glass, she could see the crowd forming a wide circle under the afternoon sun. At the center stood Ryan, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, his confidence radiating like heat off pavement. Emma touched her arm one last time. You don't have to prove anything. Leah looked at her and smiled faintly. That's where you're wrong. Sometimes silence needs to be broken. She pushed the door open. The courtyard was blindingly bright, sunlight reflecting off the pale concrete. A hush fell over the crowd as Leah stepped forward. She didn't walk fast or slow. Each step was steady, unhurried, deliberate. Her braids swayed gently, the soft clinking of silver beads the only sound breaking the silence. Ryan spotted her and grinned, spreading his arms. There she is, the brave new girl. I was starting to think you'd lost your nerve. Leah set her backpack down carefully on the ground. I told you I don't want trouble. Trouble finds people who pretend they're above it, he said, circling her like a predator testing the edge of its territory. You think because you're smart, because you talk all calm, that makes you strong. Leah followed his movement with her eyes. Strength isn't about who can shout louder. That earned a few chuckles from the onlookers, but Ryan's smirk only grew colder. You don't belong here, Leah. This is Ridgewood. We have our order. And where exactly am I supposed to fit? She asked quietly. At the bottom, he said, his voice turning sharp. Where people like you stay out of the way. The words hung heavy in the air. Even the ones who usually laughed at his jokes looked uneasy. Leah's tone stayed calm. You don't even know me. I know enough, Ryan snapped. You walk around here like you're better than us. You need a lesson in respect. Before she could reply, he shoved her shoulder hard. The sound of it, the sudden slap of contact, echoed through the courtyard. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Phones lifted higher. Leah took one step back to catch her balance, eyes steady on his. "Don't touch me again. Or what?" He mocked. "You'll cry? You'll tell the principal?" Something in Leah's posture changed. Her stance shifted ever so slightly, her shoulders loosening, her weight balanced evenly on her feet. Ryan didn't notice. He only saw what he wanted to see, a quiet girl pretending to be brave. He raised his hand again, aiming for another shove. The crowd held its breath. Time slowed. Leah waited until his hand was inches from her shoulder. Then she moved. It happened so fast most of the students didn't even understand what they were seeing. Leah stepped to the side, her hand catching his wrist and twisting just enough to redirect his momentum. Her other hand guided his elbow, her body turning in perfect synchronization. In a blink, Ryan's balance vanished. His feet left the ground. The next sound was the solid thud of his body hitting the concrete. Gasps. Silence. The faint whir of someone's phone recording. Ryan lay on his back, dazed, his mouth open in disbelief. Leah knelt beside him, controlling his wrist in a firm but measured hold. She didn't look angry, just calm, steady. He struggled once, trying to pull free, but her grip tightened with just enough pressure to freeze him. "Stop moving," she said softly, students whispered. She flipped him. She's half his size. What even was that? Principal Owens burst through the crowd at that moment, his face red and confused. "What's going on here?" He barked, but no one answered. The students only stepped back to give him a clear view. Leah spoke first, her voice even. "He pushed me. I asked him not to." Ryan's chest heaved, his pride more bruised than his body. "Let me go," she held his gaze. "You should think before you touch people, especially when you don't know who they are." Then, with careful control, she released his wrist and stood. The silence was so complete that the sound of her braids brushing her shoulders seemed almost loud. Ryan sat up slowly, rubbing his arm, eyes wide with disbelief. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. For the first time since he'd arrived at Ridgewood High, he had nothing to say. The crowd didn't cheer at first. They just stared, trying to understand what they had witnessed. Then Emma began to clap, the sharp sound breaking the stillness. Another student joined, then another. The applause spread like wildfire until the courtyard was alive with it. Ryan stared at the ground, his face red, his chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. Leah looked at him, not with triumph, but with quiet understanding. "I didn't want this," she said softly, her voice carrying over the noise. "But you made a choice. Maybe now you'll understand what real strength looks like." Ryan met her eyes for a moment, then dropped his gaze. I'm sorry." The words came out awkward, rough, like stones rolling over gravel. Leah nodded once. "Then learn from it." She turned, picked up her backpack, and walked out of the courtyard. The crowd parted silently to let her through. Her steps were measured, steady, each one echoing against the walls like a drumbeat of calm power. Behind her, Ridgewood High was no longer the same. The king had fallen and a new kind of respect had taken root. Emma ran to catch up, breathless but smiling. "That was incredible. You could have heard him, but you didn't." Leah looked straight ahead. "My coach always said power isn't about control over others. It's about control over yourself." And as they stepped out into the fading afternoon light, Leah knew this was only the beginning, not just for her, but for every student who'd been too afraid to stand before, because courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes it simply stands its ground. The next morning, Ridgewood High didn't sound the same. It buzzed with a new kind of energy, a quiet storm of disbelief, awe, and rumor. Conversations that once started with gossip now began with one name. "Leah Carter, did you see it?" One student whispered by the lockers. She flipped him like it was nothing. "I heard she trained in martial arts or something," another said, eyes wide. "No way, she's just crazy brave." Ryan didn't even stand a chance. The story had already twisted a dozen ways before first period. Some said she broke his arm. Others said she could have, but didn't. Some swore she'd moved faster than anyone they'd ever seen. But all the versions shared one thing: fear had changed sides. Ryan Cole walked through those same halls slower than usual that day. His usual confident swagger was gone. His friends trailed behind him uncertain, as if staying too close might draw unwanted attention. Every few steps he caught fragments of whispers, the sound slicing into his pride like paper cuts. That's the guy she threw down. Did you see his face after? Can't believe he apologized. For once, no one moved aside for him. He was just another student in the crowd. He clenched his fists inside his pockets, staring straight ahead. He'd spent years being the untouchable one, the one who made rules by breaking them. But now every step reminded him how fragile that power had been. Leah, meanwhile, sat quietly in homeroom, pretending not to notice the looks. Some students stared in open admiration. Others, mostly Ryan's old circle, glared with resentment. She ignored them all. Her focus stayed on the morning announcements, on the simple rhythm of the school day. Routine, control, balance. Emma slid into the seat beside her, grinning. You've officially gone viral, she whispered. Leah frowned. What? Emma turned her phone around. The video was everywhere, reposted on local accounts, shared with captions like "New Girl Takes Down Quarterback" and "Justice at Ridgewood High." Leah's stomach dropped. Oh no. Oh yes, Emma said. You're a legend now. But Leah didn't feel like one. Her fingers tapped nervously on the edge of the desk. I didn't want to embarrass him. I just wanted him to stop, Emma shrugged. Sometimes that's what it takes. People needed to see that he's not untouchable. Across the room, Ryan sat slumped at his desk. He didn't look angry, just lost. His friends whispered to him, but he barely responded. The teacher's voice filled the room, but it sounded distant to everyone. There was something heavier in the air, the awareness that an invisible hierarchy had cracked and no one knew what would come after. By lunch, the courtyard looked different. No one occupied the center space anymore, as if it had become sacred ground. Leah sat with Emma near the edge, trying to fade back into the background, but it was impossible now. A few students approached shyly. Hey, Leah, one girl said. That thing you did yesterday, and it was amazing. He's been picking on my brother for months. Leah smiled politely. Thanks, but it wasn't amazing. It was necessary. Another student, a quiet sophomore, spoke up. I just wanted to say thanks. You made it easier for the rest of us to speak up. Leah nodded, touched but uncomfortable with the attention. Just be careful, she said softly. Not everyone changes overnight. And she was right. By the end of the week, Ryan was avoiding the cafeteria altogether. Rumors said he'd been called into a meeting with Principal Owens and his parents. Some said he was suspended for a few days. Others said he'd been warned. But what struck everyone most was how quiet he had become. Leah hadn't seen him since that day in the courtyard. Until Friday afternoon, she was leaving school, backpack slung over one shoulder, the late sunlight painting long shadows across the parking lot. Emma had already gone ahead when Leah heard a voice behind her. Leah. She turned. Ryan stood a few steps away, hands in his pockets. He looked different, not broken, just stripped of the easy arrogance he once wore like armor. I'm not here to cause trouble, he said quickly. I just wanted to talk. Leah watched him carefully but nodded. Okay, for a moment neither spoke. The hum of passing cars filled the silence. I keep replaying that moment, Ryan said finally, eyes on the ground. The way everyone looked at me. The way you looked at me. I deserved it, didn't I? Leah took a breath. I don't think anyone deserves humiliation, but you needed to see that power doesn't make you right. He nodded slowly. You could have hurt me. Everyone saw it. You didn't. I didn't have to, she said simply. That's not what strength is for. Ryan looked up then, and for the first time his eyes didn't carry the same defiance. They carried understanding. Maybe small, maybe fragile, but real. My dad always said being strong meant never backing down. He said quietly. But I think he was wrong. Sometimes being strong means knowing when to stop fighting, Leah replied. The words hung between them, honest and heavy. Ryan exhaled, like releasing a weight he'd carried too long. You changed everything here, you know that? Leah gave a faint smile. I didn't change anything. People just finally saw who they could be when they stopped being afraid. Ryan nodded again, then extended his hand. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. She hesitated, then shook it. Apology accepted. Just try being better. That's all anyone can really do. He gave a small, genuine smile. the first one she'd ever seen on him. Then he turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in the fading light, the weight of the moment sinking in. Emma appeared a moment later, her face full of questions. "Was that Ryan?"
"Yeah, what did he want?"
Leah watched him disappear down the street. "To start over, I think." As they walked home together, the campus around them seemed softer somehow. The walls that had once echoed with cruelty now hummed with quiet respect. Students who once looked away when someone was bullied now looked each other in the eye. Something fundamental had shifted. Leah didn't feel like a hero. She just felt free. And in that freedom, she understood something her coach had tried to teach her for years. That real power wasn't in the fight itself. It was in the choice to rise above it again and again, until the world learned a better way to stand. Because courage doesn't end when the noise fades. It lives in the silence that follows, in the hearts of those who finally believe they can be brave too. The following Monday began with a sunrise that painted Ridgewood in gold, the kind of morning that made everything seem new. Leah woke before her alarm, the quiet of the house wrapping around her like a calm before a storm that never came. For the first time since she'd arrived, she didn't dread walking through the school doors. Her reflection in the mirror looked the same braids, same quiet eyes, but something inside had shifted. The tension she'd carried since her first day was gone. She stood a little straighter now, not from pride but from peace. When she reached Ridgewood, the difference was unmistakable. Students didn't stare the way they used to. They smiled. Some even waved. The silence that had followed her through hallways had been replaced by something warmer, something she'd never expected: respect. Emma was waiting by the lockers, waving both hands in excitement. "Leah, you won't believe this," she said, half whisper, half shout. "Coach Simmons put up a sign for a new self-defense club. He said it was your idea." Leah blinked in surprise. "My idea? I didn't say anything." "Apparently Principal Owens did," Emma said, grinning. "He told everyone your incident showed the importance of self-discipline and respect. Now the whole school's talking about signing up." Leah couldn't help but laugh softly. "Guess something good came out of all that." "Something great came out of it," Emma said. "You changed the whole vibe here. Even the seniors are acting less like they own the place." They walked together to their first class, passing the trophy cases that once felt like walls of exclusion. Leah noticed something small but telling: a poster advertising a charity drive for new students organized by the student council. Underneath, someone had scribbled in pen, "Everyone belongs at Ridgewood." It wasn't much, but it was something. In class, Ryan sat 2 rows ahead. When the teacher called on him, he answered quietly, respectfully. No smirks, no arrogance. At the end of the lesson, he lingered by the door, waiting for Leah. "Hey," he said, awkward but sincere. "Hey, I just wanted to say, I talked to Coach about helping with the self-defense club. I figured I could learn something too." Leah studied his face for a moment, then smiled. "That's a good start." He nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's weird. Feels like everyone's waiting for me to mess up again." "Then don't give them the satisfaction," she said gently. "Change isn't about what they think. It's about what you decide to do next." Ryan looked down, then back up at her with a small, genuine grin. "You're kind of impossible to argue with." "Years of practice," she said, walking past him with Emma. By lunchtime, word of the new club had spread faster than anyone expected. Students crowded around the sign-up sheet pinned near the gym doors. Names filled every line. Some of the same people who once laughed at Ryan's cruelty were now the first to sign their names. Leah stood back, watching quietly. She didn't need to be the center of it. Seeing it happen was enough. Emma elbowed her playfully. "You started a movement." Leah shook her head. "No, I just showed them it's okay to stop being afraid." Later that week, the first meeting of the self-defense club took place in the gym. The scent of new mats and fresh paint filled the air. The group was mixed. Athletes, quiet kids, even a few teachers watching from the bleachers. Coach Simmons gave a short speech about respect, restraint, and confidence. Then he gestured toward Leah. "Most of you know why this club exists," he said. "But it's not about fighting. It's about understanding your strength and choosing how to use it." Leah felt every pair of eyes on her but stayed calm. "Coach is right," she said. "It's not about hurting people. It's about control of your body, your emotions, and your choices." Ryan was among the students lined up on the mats. When she finished speaking, he raised his hand. Leah, he said, his voice steady, if you'll teach, I'll listen. The gym was quiet for a beat. Then Leah nodded. Then let's begin. The first lesson started simple. Balance, footwork, awareness. But as the session went on, something deeper unfolded. Laughter replaced tension. Students encouraged one another instead of competing. Even Ryan laughed when he stumbled trying to mimic one of Leah's moves. By the end, the air in the gym felt lighter. The sound of sneakers squeaking on the floor mixed with the rhythm of shared effort. People learning, unlearning, growing together. Afterward, as students left, Emma walked beside Leah, still grinning. You realize this is the first time I've seen Ryan take instructions from anyone, right? Leah chuckled. Everyone's teachable if they want to be. Yeah, but still. You flipped the guy and then turned him into a student. That's kind of poetic. Leah smiled but said nothing. Inside, she was thinking of her coach's voice again. True power is calm. The strongest move is often the quiet one. As the sun dipped lower outside the gym windows, Leah gathered her things, feeling that same calm she had the day before the fight. It wasn't about winning or proving anything. It was about balance. When she stepped outside, the campus glowed in orange light. Ryan was waiting by the steps, holding 2 bottles of water. You earned this, he said, handing her one. She accepted it, amused. You didn't have to. Yeah, I did, he said. Because you were right. Strength isn't about control over others. It's about control over yourself. Leah smiled, taking a sip. Looks like you're finally getting it. He laughed, not mockingly this time, but with a lightness that surprised even him. Guess I am. They stood in silence for a moment, the school quiet behind them, the sky stretching wide and golden. It wasn't forgiveness or friendship yet, but it was understanding. The kind that takes root slowly and lasts, the kind that changes everything that comes after. As Leah walked home, the wind tugged gently at her braids, making the silver beads click softly, the same rhythm that had followed her since her first day. But now the sound didn't echo through empty halls. It carried through open ones. For the first time, she didn't whisper, "Stay invisible." She whispered something new. "Stand tall." Weeks passed, and Ridgewood High settled into a rhythm that felt new but right. The self-defense club grew from a handful of curious students into one of the most attended activities in the school. What started as whispers of fear had turned into something stronger, confidence spreading through the halls like sunlight after a storm. Leah never liked attention, but she'd learned to accept it when it came from the right place. She wasn't a symbol or a hero. She was just a girl who wanted peace and ended up creating it by standing her ground. Still, there was one thing she hadn't faced yet: closure with herself. One Friday afternoon, the gym was nearly empty. Most students had gone home, but Leah stayed behind, rolling up mats and humming softly to herself. The sound of footsteps broke the silence. She turned to find Principal Owen standing at the doorway, hands clasped behind his back. "You've done something remarkable here," he said. "You've managed to change more in a few weeks than some of us have in years." Leah smiled politely. "It wasn't just me. Everyone helped." He nodded, but his eyes held a quiet pride. "Maybe. But it takes one person to show others that change is possible." She didn't know how to respond, so she simply said thank you as he left. Ryan entered through the side door, gym bag slung over his shoulder. He looked more grounded now, calmer, lighter. He'd been showing up to every club session, training with focus and humility. There was no trace left of the boy who once strutted through the halls like he owned them. "You still practicing this late?" he asked. Leah laughed softly. "Old habits. I like the quiet." Ryan nodded. "Yeah, I get that now. The quiet helps you listen to yourself." He dropped his bag and stretched. "Mind if I run through one last drill?" "Go ahead," she said, moving aside. Ryan stepped into position, his movement still clumsy but determined. Leah watched him correct his stance, breathe through his shoulders, and finish with a controlled step back. It wasn't perfect, but it was real effort. When he finished, he looked at her, breathing hard but smiling. "I've been thinking," he said. "When this all started, I wanted everyone to fear me. I thought that meant respect. Now I see how wrong that was. Respect doesn't come from fear," Leah said quietly. "It comes from trust." Ryan nodded slowly. "I'm trying to rebuild that, one day at a time." She looked at him for a long moment, then said, "You're doing it." He took a deep breath and exhaled. "You know, before you showed up, this school felt like it belonged to a few people. Now it feels like it belongs to everyone again. Leah smiled, eyes softening. That's how it should have been all along. He hesitated, then added, some of the guys want to host a charity tournament. Thought maybe the club could raise money for local youth centers, help kids who don't get the same chances we did. Her smile grew wider. That's a great idea. Let's do it. The following week, the courtyard that had once been the stage for humiliation became a stage for unity. Posters went up around the school. Ridgewood Strong, Charity Self-Defense Showcase. Students volunteered to demonstrate what they'd learned. Teachers brought families to watch. The crowd was even larger than the one that had gathered the day Ryan fell, but this time, no one came to see a fight. Leah stood at the edge of the courtyard, the same place where everything had changed. The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow over the crowd. Ryan stood beside her, helping organize students into groups. When he caught her eye, he gave a small nod of thanks. When the demonstration began, Leah stepped forward. A few months ago, she said, her voice steady, this courtyard was a place of fear. People came here to watch someone get hurt. But today we're showing what happens when you turn strength into something good, when you use it to lift others instead of push them down. The applause that followed wasn't loud and wild. It was full, deep, and sincere. One by one, students took turns demonstrating moves they'd practiced for weeks. The same voices that once spread rumors now shouted encouragement. The same hands that once filmed cruelty now clapped in support. When Ryan stepped forward to perform his sequence, the crowd went silent again. He moved carefully, respectfully, finishing with a perfect defensive stance. When he looked up, his expression carried something Leah recognized, humility and peace. The applause that followed shook the courtyard. Leah caught his eye and gave a small nod. He smiled, and for the first time it was genuine. As the event ended and the sun dipped lower, painting the courtyard gold, Leah felt a calm she hadn't known in a long time. The story that had started with confrontation had ended with connection. She had faced cruelty, prejudice, and pride, and turned them into something better. Emma ran up, nearly out of breath. Leah, we raised over $3,000. Coach says it's going to fund classes for middle schoolers. Leah laughed. That's incredible. You realize what you did, right? Emma said, eyes shining. You didn't just stand up for yourself. You changed what standing up means here. Leah looked around, at the students smiling, at Ryan helping younger kids learn their first steps, at teachers watching with pride. I didn't do it alone, she said. No one ever does. The crowd began to scatter, the day fading into soft evening light. Leah lingered for a moment, standing in the same spot where it had all begun. The air was cool now, the sounds of laughter echoing instead of silence. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. The scent of grass, the hum of life, the sound of her silver beads clicking softly in the breeze. It was a sound of peace this time, not defiance. She whispered to herself, a small smile curving her lips. Stay calm, stand tall, move forward. And as she walked away from the courtyard for the last time that day, Ridgewood High didn't just feel like a school anymore. It felt like a place reborn. A place where courage had left its mark, where one act of quiet strength had rewritten what it meant to belong. The echoes of that change would linger long after the final bell. Because when one person chooses dignity over fear, the world doesn't stay the same. It learns to stand a little taller too,